film every week.
Welcome to the Work-Life Balance Podcast. I am Kara.
And I am Maggie.
Together, we're a power real estate team with the Baird Partners in Nashville.
We believe that the hustle culture of today's driven entrepreneur who lives and works in Middle Tennessee
requires balance.
Welcome back to Work-Life Balance with Kara and Maggie.
Welcome back.
Today we have a guest with us. This is Shea with Baird Financial. So welcome on.
Thank
you. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited. We talked about this a couple times, so I had to reschedule once, but I'm glad I'm here.
That's okay.
Finally got it together. Yeah. It's hard to manage everybody's schedules, especially with two people and having to coordinate everything. So we appreciate you for making time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to be here.
And you've got your own podcast too, so
yeah, I do. Yeah.
We can give a shout out at that.
Yeah. The Collab podcast. It's actually me and he's actually a hometown friend of mine. Grew up with him, met him in high school, and he lives in Springfield, Missouri. And we had both tried to start podcasts on our own, separately of each other, a few years ago, and never got off the ground running. But both had the equipment and the concepts, and just kind of meshed them last year.
That's cool.
And so, we've been running with that, and it's been a lot of fun. Just like y'all, we've got to meet a lot of new people, and ours is kind of centered around like the, business minded, next generation, trying to get, different people in there to share like what they're doing, why they're doing it, and not only that, but like who were they, in their childhood, growing up that got them to where they are now. Like what's behind the person that we're looking at today. Yeah. And so it's been cool to kind of to explore that. Yeah.
That's so fun.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's all about connections and your business and ours. And so the more we can get in front of and the more people we can engage with, I feel like you're always learning something. And it's just so cool. And and the fact that you take it from like the past, like the walks of life and how they got there.
Yeah.
I love that story.
You learn some unique things too, especially even when you interview someone that you'll find out something about their past that you had no idea about, and you thought you've lived life with this person for the past 15 years, and there's some little things you pick up on. So it's pretty unique, and like you said, we get to learn about a lot of different ways that people make a living for themselves, and what they focus on to try to grow that living, and it's good because you could take some of that out to your own business too. I mean, that's the benefit, like. We like doing the podcast because it helps create a community, and that's what we want to create. But I mean, we get just as much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, if not more. I mean,
if not more, I know. We talk about it all the time. We're like, gosh, that was really good. Yeah. It's like they just are always better. It's like, what did you get out of that one? Wow, I got a lot out of that. It's just
there's no better feeling than like you get done, and you're like, that was good. That was like a good, like time well spent. You know?
Yeah, and you can pull so much just from one conversation too. Like we even go back sometimes and listen to them, and they're like, oh my gosh, like I actually love that, and try to clip it or whatever. But we both have psych degrees too. So even going back the childhood, all of the
therapy session.
It's fine. There must be something with like podcasters and like if they're into like the behavioral side, psychology side of people, because that's exactly how my co-host Tyler, he just loves psychology, like just deep into like what gets a person to who they are, what gets them ticking. So, and then for my investment side of things, behavioral finance is a big part of what we do. Not necessarily what you're putting your money into, but why, and then what's happened to you previously that makes you make the decisions you do around your money. That's 90%. As much, that's almost more important than what you put your money into is why are you doing it and what's happened in your past that led you to make that decision in the first place.
Okay, then we need to jump into that because now you're speaking like the language.
Yeah.
Right there. Okay, so I've actually never heard of it as a behavioral
finance.
I haven't either.
Okay, so obviously there's an art in how you do and people that are into real estate versus stocks versus bonds, all the things. So can you just kind of explain exactly that?
And behavioral finance is actually taught now in your like public school systems. It's probably a little bit made in high school, but especially in the like in the graduate level and undergrad level finance classes anyways, you're going to talk about behavioral finance. And so it's a lot about like decisions people have. Like one term example was like the gambler's fallacy. And the gambler's fallacy is once you keep winning, so if you're a gambler and you keep winning, you kind of have this thought that you're going to continue to win.
Yeah.
Investors can get like that with stocks too, or mutual funds or whatever. They can start picking stocks and feel like they become really, really good at it.
Ride the high.
When in all reality, they just really kind of hit a few good stocks and made a few good choices on impulse. And they probably had some data behind that made that decision. But in all reality, they kind of got lucky and picked good stocks. There's definitely skill that goes into it, but But when they keep doing that, what happens is they keep thinking they're going to win. So then all of a sudden their bets start becoming larger and larger. And then they have the same feeling on a new stock. They have more money because the previous year started working. Yeah. And then they take that big jump into something they shouldn't have, and then they get bit by it. Yeah. And so there's different terms like that we even learn about. Like if you go and you get your CFP to be a certified financial planner, there's a whole list of, or even like topic about behavioral finance and the different terms that you have to learn to be able to educate your clients that like, hey, you're in this mindset and you don't realize it.
Okay. Because I don't think people really ask themselves, okay, why am I doing this? They'll just throw money at, X, Y, and Z. And once they start thinking about it, if you can train them to think about it before they purchase it, then it kind of reels you back in a little bit. Yeah. And it's just,
interesting.
It's all about the individual too. I mean, we all make our own decisions around our finances based upon really our upbringing, what we saw, what we know, what we had, what we didn't have. Yeah. All those things factor into how we think about money. And, and so it's, what one person might think is ludicrous, the other person thinks is actually the normal standard of living for them, and vice versa. So it's about, understanding that about people when they walk in the door to talk to you, and trying to figure that out quickly. So you can kind of, a lot of times it's disarming first, and then trying to get the right recommendations.
So the conversations you're having with people are more so like learning about them and making that personal connection rather than saying, okay, this is how much money you have, this is where we're going to put it kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of how it was back in the day. There was like so the background that I have is that my father opened up the branch in Murfreesboro like 35 years ago. And so I kind of grew up in it. I would, on the way to school, we were listening to CNBC. So and he would make us listen to it. I bought my first stock when I was 14. I think I had, so there was, I think a client of my dad's or something had happened, or a family member had given, me a little bit of money whenever I had, like, I think it was like $500, and they put it in a mutual fund, like the day I was born, or the day after I was born. And so when money had grown a little bit, and my dad said, hey, you got a little bit of money in the account. You should look at, like, go find a stock and figure out why you want to buy it, and let's buy one. So when I was 14, when I was in my freshman year, I bought the Bank of America stock, and it was just cool to see that grow. So from there, I kind of really got excited about it. That's what I want to do in college, and so I went and got my finance degree and enjoyed it. But really going back to like the behavioral finance part of things, like that's back in the day, like when my dad started, that's what you would do. You would just say, all right, how much money you got? Let's get the best return. Yeah. And then it slowly changed into a more like planning-based business where, as the economy grew, families of more wealth grew, and so more complex planning needs were happening. Sure. And so the investments they're important, but they're not as important as sheltering some of these families' assets from taxes and so forth. The estate tax is really high. It's almost 40%. So if you have over the amount, the estate exclusion amount, which right now is high, it's like $12 million. But if you have $13 million, let's say, if I'm just using loosely now, I think it's a little bit different than $12 million, but let's say it's $12 million, and you have $13 million, $400,000 of that will just go to the estate tax. Yeah. It's about 38% rate. So what advisors figured out over time is that we got to do a lot of planning, get them connected to estate attorneys, do some trust work, stuff like that. Sure. So that in turn made it to where this behavioral finance part kind of really came into play, where we needed to figure out like why, families and investors made the decisions they did. And so this whole behavioral finance field kind of got developed and it's been really in practice for probably the past 10, 15 years. That's where it's really been focused, where it's not just buying, it's not just buying stocks and bonds like they used to be in the 90s.
But I love how your parents were like teaching you financial literacy very young.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
That's not something that a lot of people have. And it's like you just get to college or real life or whatever, and you just start trying to learn as you go if you didn't have parents to teach you that.
It's tough. I feel very fortunate that I had that, because that's actually something that we really focus on in our business. Is if we have clients who have children like in high school and they get their first job, we're like, hey, we'll do $10 every paycheck, but we're gonna put $10 of your paycheck into an account, and you're gonna come in and learn about like how like the stock market works. So just those little financial literacy tricks our clients really enjoy that we do, because just getting the child involved in that understanding, when they get to college or wherever they're gonna go in life, they'll have a little bit of a base knowledge, and it's better than nothing.
Oh my gosh,
for sure.
Yeah. I mean, if they could take any class, they need to be taking a finance class. Like Absolutely. I tell the kids, I've got a freshman in college this year, and I'm like, he's just not that excited about college. Let's just be honest. But I'm like, I don't care what you get out of it. But if you want to own your own business, you got to have some finance. And I think like if you listen to any podcast that talks about money and teaching your children, they need to be taking finance class.
Yeah.
You can't run a business if you don't know that.
Yeah.
So like to teach them at young age, I think is like, that's priceless. That's amazing.
And to help like not learn the hard way. Like a lot of people, it's good to learn the hard way in some instances, you know, but it's also good to also learn from others so you don't have to learn the hard way either. We
say that all the time.
There's some money lost in those hard decisions.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you don't always have to learn the hard way.
Right.
And so, yeah, absolutely.
We talk about that all the time just with real estate and stuff. She's like, I fell so that you don't have to.
Yeah, no.
But I'm like, you're still going to fall, but maybe not as hard.
Not as hard. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's,
hard.
yeah, absolutely.
And that's all part of it. That's learning, that's appreciating. And I think going back to like the behavioral real quick, like when you have clients that come in that are all over the board, but like if they come in from, you know, very humble beginnings where money was not a thing that was familiar in their family. So they're going to come in with a different perspective on, you know, their risk level.
Yeah.
Right.
No. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Trust fund guy over here that's got a lot of money to play with. And if he loses it, it's a game. It's just a day at the office. Right. So I think for you, you have a lot of psychology in that.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, how do we make sure that you don't lose your whole life savings?
Yeah. And it's about like trying to figure it out early on in the meeting too. Because that's, you know, some people will come in and say one thing. And now this is a lesson that I actually learned the hard way, is that I learned the hard way that people can come in and say one thing, but you can go look at some of their previous actions or previous conversations with and realize that they don't really act that way.
Yeah.
And so if they're coming in aggressively and then you go invest aggressively, but you realize the rest of their life's pretty conservative, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
And I had that happen. Had someone come and say they wanted to grow a bunch of money, so we put them in a little bit more of aggressive risk tolerance that would have been fine for them. The market fluctuated. They got freaked, spooked, and wanted to sell everything. So, you know, I learned that I probably should have picked up on a few things, that signs they were giving me, to realize they say they want this, and even though they do, I need to be able to back them down and say, let's start here, see how you feel, and then we can scale up instead of just throwing them into it. Right. So some of those are learned, but that's all that behavioral finance part of it, just kind of the psychology of people. If I had to go back and get I just have my undergraduate degree, but if I were to go back and get my master's or get an MBA or something of that nature, I would do it in psychology. I would not do it in finance or economics. Yeah. It wouldn't serve me as well as a psychology degree would. For sure. Most of the books I read are psychology-based books about learning about people.
Because it's all about how to connect with people, how to read the signs that they're not telling you, like you're saying. And I mean, even if in our job, we do it all the time too. And it's like, it's just second nature now. Whereas you can tell when some people don't pick up on some things and then others do. And it definitely will take you further.
It serves a huge purpose. I mean, I think, you know, people always say, well, you don't use your degree. I'm like, every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because I'm not a therapist in a chair, I'm a therapist to my clients, to my, you know, our vendors or whatever. Like, we're always putting out fires. So it is like hands down. But it's kind of refreshing to hear that you're saying it like you do it on the finance side too. Because that's kind of like a subject that we've never really been exposed to. So that's awesome. Yeah, that's really, I mean, like I said, that's almost 90% of my day, especially, you know, like last year was a rough year for the stock market. And 90% of my day was spent just like kind of reassuring people and talking them through, you know, the immediate panic and anxiety. For sure. It really was not like, we were looking over at their assets and stuff, but it was really just reassurance. I mean, 90% of the calls that came in was reassurance and being able to like, and each client's different. So different things are going to reassure different people. So you kind of have to learn to pivot sometimes.
Be a chameleon.
Yeah, all that is really important, and way more. Like, I think anyone who doesn't know about the business and wants to get into it doesn't realize that's what their time's going to be spent doing, and not necessarily spent looking over portfolios and making changes and trading day in, day out. Yeah. That's not really what our business is. We can set those portfolios up where they run, and we review them on a quarterly basis or monthly or however you want to set up your practice. But it's really about just dealing with people. I mean, that's what, when people ask me what I do, I just tell them I'm in the customer service business. Because that's really what we are. It's the customer service business. People work with us and stay with us because we answer the phone, we respond quickly to emails, like we're available. Yeah. Not because we are, you know, the one person, you know, we're not the secret shop on the street that makes the most money for you. You know, obviously we want to be that, but that's not our goal.
Sure. Yeah.
We want to work with people who know, like us, and trust us, and vice versa too. Yeah. That's the other thing. Like no I'm sure y'all go like, you know, I mean, I'm sure you've had the crazy person that you're showing houses to, and you're like, I'm literally sitting here wasting my time and being, you know, many times. Yeah, absolutely. And we have the same thing, and being able to pick up on that earlier will save you time and money. Yeah. And so we have the same. We have to make sure that like that we're gonna want to deal with them. Are they nice to our people? Do they treat our other partners well? Like if they're really nice to us, but they're really bad to some of the other members on our team who kind of help them more with like the ins and outs of like service work and updating beneficiaries and sending money in and out and some of that. If they're really rude to them, we don't want to work with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we've had some people that are really nice to us, but then they're mean, or vice versa. They're really mean to us, but they're really, so you want to find that it's a good fit.
Yeah. I think that comes with experience too, don't you think?
You lose clients and and all that because of it. And then there's some people you lose and you're like, it stinks, but you're like, this is going to be bad. I'm going to be better for it.
And you get to a point sometimes where it's like you're the person to let them go rather than vice versa, because it's more energy than what it's worth sometimes.
It's a tough one. I know there's many people that we all have that client. Everyone's had that client, and if you haven't, you will, or maybe luckily you won't actually have to deal with this. But everyone's got that client that pays you well. They know they pay you. They're willing to pay you, but they're really terrible to deal with. Mm-hmm. And it's like, how long do you hold on? Because it's hard to get rid of a paying client who knows your service. They pay for your service willingly, but they're just every time their phone that pops up on your phone, you start to go like, oh my gosh,
I don't want to talk to them. Yeah,
and it's a lot about getting weeding those people out over time, but it's hard to get rid of them because you're gonna lose money. It's not really an easy thing to do. Yep. Kind of have to take a look in the mirror and figure out what's important.
Is it worth the emotional trauma though?
Absolutely.
Are you only? I mean, because I know that your job is financial advising and you're in the stocks. Do you do any other investing? And do you invest in real estate? And is that part of your portfolio?
Yeah, I do. So a big reason why I do is when I first started, I would do a bunch of retirement plans for people to try. I would offer second opinions. Like, hey, I know you've got, let me take a second opinion. So I would do all these second opinions and just trying to grow in business. And I realized that in all these retirement plans, the people that were really well off, you always had one guy who was all real estate and nothing really invested in the market. He had, significantly less compared. Then you had one person who was all in the stock market and not much real estate. And those people were fine. I mean, they could retire the way they wanted to. But the people that had both were like on a whole different level. Yeah. Okay. And I saw that and I was like, and you're always going to be heavier one versus the other, depending upon what you are more attracted to. But the ones that had both, so I immediately was like, I want to do this. So me and my brother-in-law actually 4 years ago opened up a multifamily. We've invested in multifamily only in the Western Kentucky region.
Oh, wow.
It's a great place to do it.
Western Kentucky, huh?
Yeah, because he lives up there and works up there.
Okay. You went to school there, right?
I went to school at WKU, yeah. Okay. And then my wife's actually from Paducah, Kentucky, so a lot of stuff we do is in the Hopkinsville, Clarksville type area, so right around those borders. Where
the prices are really, really good.
Exactly. So that's kind of what led us to it is we started looking and, I was looking in Murfreesboro. This was probably 2019 when we started looking. Yeah, 2019, maybe 2018. Getting the number years
right before
confused.
COVID time.
Yeah, right before COVID time, and man, we were looking in Murfreesboro, and I was like, these prices are pretty high, And so then we went to we started looking at Hopkinsville because he got a job there and was working there. He's actually a financial advisor as well. Okay. So it's two financial advisors that kind of we were both working for the same company. But do
y'all have an LLC together? To run that?
Okay. Yeah. So it's called RNS Real Estate. It's just Redfield and Shea. We just put our last names on it. And he's my brother-in-law. So, so we started a LLC and then immediately started going and looking for properties. And yes, we just ended up finding that the returns, like price-wise, so it's not necessarily like a capital appreciation play, but it's a like return and income type play. Right. The returns are very similar to the returns in Murfreesboro. You just didn't get the capital appreciation type as you would in this, Nashville, Murfreesboro area. Mm-hmm. So we just went for that because we could afford it and we'd buy it. And then we started buying quite a few of them. So we try to buy one a year at a minimum. Yeah. So we just do that, try to buy as much as we can without taking on too much because we both have full-time jobs. So it's like as much as we can. But
the returns in that area are much better than any others. We just had a client that we sold a 5-plex to in Clarksville. Mm-hmm. And the returns there, like we were looking all over the state. In Clarksville, in Tennessee, by far had some of the best return on investment affordable. For sure.
Yeah. We've got big plans over there. I think that Clarksville's only going to grow more because of the Nashville exposure. I think that more people are going to be willing to drive longer.
Yeah, and it's not that far.
Yeah, it's not too bad. So I really think that's going to. Actually, it's funny. I started noticing this because we would stay the night in Paducah over the weekend, and we'd wake up on like Monday morning and drive back early to work. And I know that, and each year I kept having to get up early and earlier because the traffic kept getting worse and worse.
Heavier. Yep.
And I was like, okay, there's numbers growing here. So
for sure,
we have a feeling that, so we buy Hopkinsville. We're trying to even look like closer to the border, because we think that it's just going to continue to drive up prices the closer we get into that Clarksville, Hopkinsville area. And we think more people will actually start living in Hopkinsville and then making the drive to Clarksville. Yeah. We think it'll slowly, because there's a lot of farmland stuff available in Hopkinsville.
Not only that, but there's the base, so you have a really, and that's a training base too.
Right?
And Austin P. So it's a great area for rentals because you have a lot of turnover. So
we're looking heavily there. So our plan now is just to stay in rentals. We want to get in development, but we just try to do the right things each and every day and do the,
That's it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole nother beast too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Cause,
spreading the love. And so you have your hands in a little bit of everything. And not just one.
And if the rentals if it grows nicely, it should be able to allow us to leverage that to then start the development process.
For sure.
So
I know you can't necessarily talk about like one stock versus another, but what do you see as far as benefits of stocks versus real estate? Or vice versa.
Yeah. Oh man, that's like people have talked to me about this all the time. It's tough.
I mean, obviously they're both great.
Right?
Oh no, it's good. Well, it's again, it goes back to the psychology part of it. It really depends like who you are as a person. So what I found is people that love real estate, they love it because you can touch it, like you can feel it. You can walk up and be like, this is. This is what I have, and not only that, and where like the stock market, unless you are really pretty involved in it, you can kind of get confused on some topics and terms, and so you don't 100% know like what you own all the time, and so it is a little bit more like intangible, and not only that, but if you had a ticker tape on your garage door when you walked in every single day, and it shows you the price would go up or down of that house, it would actually affect you a lot more than you realize. That's how the stock market is. You can know, we can check right now and see if it's up or down every day. You really don't do that much with your home values.
Right. No. So much anxiety.
So all you do is you take a long-term outlook on it, right? 3 or 4 years from now, it's probably worth more. Well, that's the same thing in the stock market too. The difference is you see those daily fluctuations, so it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to completely not look at it, it would be that way. Actually, Fidelity came out with an article at the end of 2022, said that what they went through, they went back to 2000, and they looked over the past 20 years what the number one returning types of traders were in their entire system. And so as individual investors like me and you that have a Fidelity account or even like retirement account, all of it. And they came down to two types of people. It was people who had forgot they had an account and people who had passed away.
Oh, wow.
And not reached back out. So, people that literally had put money in there and never looked at it again. Those outperformed returns. Any type of day trader, any type of anything. Wow. So, and that's very
the long-term plan.
And it's just like real estate, like real estate, obviously we're in a different market because we had this insane amount of appreciation, through the growth in Nashville. But for the most part, that's going to be worth more down the road. And that's what the stock market is too. So for us, it's really about who the person is. I have real estate clients who are heavily in real estate, and they love the stock market because what they can do is they can go dump money into an account every single month or lump sums every single year, and they watch it grow, and they don't have to do anything for that growth. Yeah. There's no talking to tenants. Yeah. There's none of that.
No maintenance.
They send they get a 1099 from us. They send their CPA. They get their returns. We might even sell for some losses to help them on some other it's just they see that benefit, and they're like, this is so much worth my effort and time, like I can spend on my business, and I know my assets are growing. Sure. So they love that part of it. So the people that are really in the real estate, like especially like rental management, they like it a lot because it kind of helps them like make money and not have to do all the work.
Well, a good way to do it too is if you're cash flowing on your property every month, just immediately take that cash flow and invest it in stocks too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then you're sharing the love.
Yeah.
And you're diversifying. That's a big thing. I talk with business owners. Most business owners, and y'all probably do the same, 1099 employees, y'all kind of have a tax account, right? You got an account you throw money into and take a little bit of percentage out of each check and throw it in there. And sometimes you have more. Hopefully you always have more. Sometimes you have less. Those things. But you have more. And so I learned that as I kind of started, which I was a small business owner too when I first started before I did this. And so I learned
pressure washing business.
Yeah, pressure washing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so actually with Tyler, the same guy I do the podcast with. Cool. So we operate the same way. Well, then I started going up to other companies, and as I was prospecting, and saying, hey, like, do you have you have a tax account? And everyone knew what that was. It's just a checking account, savings account somewhere, but everybody calls it their tax account. Yeah. And I started realizing that people have a lot left over extra, and they either look at that for reinvestment in their business, or they don't touch it and it builds. And so I started kind of going after those funds that they're done reinvesting or don't need reinvestment. Like, hey, let's diversify away from your current business or real estate, wherever you're at, and let's put it into the stock market. You can open up a corporate account, and then you can really just kind of grow that, or a personal account in your name, however you want to. Most of the times they'll invest because you can use that as a bank. I mean, you can loan against your assets. So the difference between, back to your point of stocks versus, or being invested in the market and being invested in real estate. So real estate, another reason people like it, is the leveraging opportunity. If you're happen to be in a really good area, there's high appreciation, all of a sudden you can buy a home and it's worth $50,000 more, and you can go take a line of credit on that home or that duplex or whatever and go use it for another one. You can do the same thing with your investments. It's just not as favorable. So you might get a line of credit on a property for 70 to 90%, let's say, right? Depending upon what kind of bank you work with. Where in the, if you had an individual account with your name on, it's a taxable account, you could, just a brokerage account, if you have $1 million in there, you can take about 60 to 70% of it a lot of times with different banks, and you just invest it. You just, and those, a lot of times those, I didn't know that. Yeah. And so in the interest, you take an interest rate, sometimes they're a lot lower too. You work with a third party bank, but they're your assets. And a lot of times those interest rates can be pretty favorable. So people can do that as well. A lot of, like, your really, really wealthy billionaires, that's what they're doing. They've got stock options and, because they're executives at Tesla or whatever, and they're just actually loaning against those assets and using that a lot of times. But you can also do that just like you can do in real estate. And some people don't know that. So for my business owner clients, it's a big thing I say too. Like, this creates more buying power. Like, if you do want to loan or leverage your assets, like, your company can start shelling away assets to let it grow while you're, not focusing on it. And you might look down 5 years down the road and you've got $2 million sitting in there. You need funding one day. All of a sudden, either you can, one, sell all that, or don't take the gains and loan against it.
Okay.
That's really awesome, though.
So both of them have the same, there's, we can talk about margin. There's a lot of stuff you can do that can make it very similar to real estate. Mm-hmm. It really just comes down to kind of who you are. The returns are very, very similar. You can't really put a number on the average return across the country of real estate, or y'all could maybe give me a better. I've had trouble finding that number. Because the pockets are so different.
Correct.
Location's everything.
Location's everything. And so it can be fantastic. You can be growing 20%, 14% year. I think 14% year over year for 3 or 4 years to have this incredible growth. Mm-hmm. Or it could be like Hopkinsville's been much slower. It's not near as high as Nashville. Where the stock market's going to be very similar. They're going to average out returns. I think they average out pretty close to the same. The S&P 500 since inception, accounting for inflation, I think 7.75% year over year. Okay. So the way we look at things is that's my benchmark for everything, even real estate. So if I go out and I'm looking for a piece of property, if it's not returning 8%, I really don't want to look at it because I know I can go get an SP 500. For sure. I'm gonna bank on that 30-year return number, that 40-year return number. Yeah.
What cap rate do you look for when you invest in real estate?
That's what he's saying, 8%.
That 8%.
Just like minimum, but I mean, ideally. Well,
if it's commercial, you got to bring it down, right? Yeah. So commercials, could be great to find commercial opportunity for 8%.
Not right now.
Those are like, not right now especially. Yeah. So commercial will come down more like 5 or 6%, kind of the average.
But I know 8's ideal, or not ideal, but that's kind of what you strive for. But what would be ideal? Because I know yours is 10.
Well, 10's the number. It'd be great if you can get it.
I mean, it depends on the economy. Because when I was starting in real estate investing, I was getting way more than 10%. I mean, not even going to share those numbers because it was a totally different market. Yeah, it was 08, 09 when the market took it. So. Those went down, and they're going to slowly get back up there with the way the market's softening right now. So I think you're going to be able to get some returns that are going to come back. People that bought in the last couple of years, though, they're not looking very hot on their returns. No. Yeah,
but it might just look like the next 7 years it's not that great, but then the next 15 will be even better, right? Plan, and that's like the thing that I try to tell most people. It's not really, if you're in my opinion, if you're in the real estate market, now if you're a flipper, it's a little bit different. But if you're in the real estate market and or the stock market and you're in it for the next 3 or 4 years, you're playing a really tough game. Mm-hmm. You have to be so perfect, so precise. You got to make the right moves at the right time. Too much can go wrong for you to really make money. if you can think about it in the long run, you're going to have those short-term wins, which even help with that long-term number.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, like I said, we look at, like I said, I just bank it on the SP 500 because that's where I'm investing my money actively as well. So I want my entire, let's call it household, so real estate investments to 401k to be kind of rising with the same ship. Some of them will outperform the others, but that benchmark is that just for inflation, 7.75% number. I round it up to 8. If we can get 10, we go for 10. We've got it
for whatever we can get up there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got our first one we ever bought. We ended up getting a pretty good deal on it, so that one's pretty good. The second one was not. It's right around that 8ish to 10% number. We've looked this year and we just decided not to do it. But this year, what we did is we put money in the real estate or in the stock market.
Okay.
So and that's what's always nice about having both is that you can pivot from one to the other, and if you're going for the same returns, you're doing the right thing. It's just in different asset classes.
Right. Yeah. And I think it just comes down to education right there. I mean, even what you're saying right now, I just learned a few things. So it's like, I think if you can say that to your clients that are like, do I go buy a house or do I put money in the S&P? Like, what do I do? They need you to hold their hand because most of us don't speak the language.
Yeah. And it depends on what lifestyle stage we're in.
Totally. True.
If someone's coming to me and they're, in a dire situation for retirement and, they have a 15-year window and, they don't have too high of an income to save a lot of money, like they might need to look at doing some type of securing a 15-year note with a very, a good rental property that they're not going to pay off and use as income down the road to have retirement income or an asset that they could then sell, because in retirement, you've got two things. You need to have we really think that 3 things. You need to have a understandable living lifestyle. You can't be spending a crazy amount of money unless you have the assets to back that. So a lot of assets or retirement income. And that's what got me, excited was that I realized all these people who had real estate that had it for 20, 25 years. Yes, they had a large portfolio, $4, $5, $6, $10 million worth of real estate, but they had $30,000, $40,000 a month just coming in.
Their passive income. Yep.
And that was like a pension. Yeah. Now, obviously, the larger it was, the more numbers, but even just $4,000 a month in retirement is tremendous.
Great.
It'll help you tremendously. And so that's when I realized, we're gonna create. I mean, we started off with we're gonna create a pension for ourselves because the pensions have basically gone away. You could work for a company for a long time and they give you a pension, but those have pretty well gone away unless you work for the government. But yes, that's what we started with. Obviously, that we've changed now. Now we kind of want to grow more of a legitimate real estate company and get it vertically integrated, and we have larger goals for it. But really, it just started with the pension, and I'll be fine if that's all it is too.
I love that. Hey,
a win's a win, I guess.
Yeah. But any income that just comes to you is a fabulous thing. And if you're getting the appreciation and the income, then it's a total win-win.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
For sure. Well, I do kind of want to segue a little bit into you as a person. I think we kind of skipped who is Connor Shea, but we got a very good glimpse of that as far as the financial side.
Yeah, it all bleeds in.
So let's talk personal side. So something that you do that I think is actually very admirable and crazy is the fact that you're super into this endurance sports and running.
Yeah.
Kara played competitive soccer growing up. I did too. We know what running is, but doing the rim to rim to rim and 50-mile runs are not something I could do. No. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Gosh, that journey, I guess stumbled into it by accident. So I was a tennis player. And I'm born and raised in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, just right down the road.
That's how we know each other, by the way.
Yeah. And that's how it is in our business, in the investment business. That's what I told my wife whenever she moved here. I said, listen, I'm going to be a financial advisor in Murfreesboro. Probably means you're going to die in Murfreesboro because you got to build long-term relationships. And it's we can't be jumping city to city. So just cement that in right when we got married. And so, and she jokes about that, but it's the truth because you got to build relationships and it takes time. Born and raised and tennis player, always loved being I loved pushing myself and loved sports. And went to Western Kentucky, played tennis there, and I actually had the opportunity. A buddy of mine said, "Hey, do you want to do a half Ironman with me?" So half the distance. So it was a 1.2 mile swim, 56 mile bike ride, and a half marathon, 13.1 mile run. That's crazy. I was it was my junior year of college. Let's do it. Well, back then I was still going out a lot, and I was I'll just I'll train a little bit for it, and I didn't really train for it at all. and expected just to go do this thing. So we all go, and two of my buddies, they actually trained the right way, and I didn't. I think I ran like 4 miles one time, swam 500 meters once, and then I like did a 20-mile bike ride one time, and then I went and tried to do this thing. And so it was actually really bad. I busted out the swim great. Went to the 56-mile bike ride, did really well. It was 3 miles to the changing point, and I felt my legs like tense up. I was like, man, I gotta get, like, I'm about to cramp up. I can't tell. So I extended my legs, and boom, those jokers locked straight up. So I'm sitting here on a bicycle with my legs, and they can't bend.
No.
So I'm just sitting here waiting for the bike to slowly roll, and then I just fall over on the side of the road. And I'm still I'm still stick-legged with like my hands on, like I can't, because they're clipped in, so I can't get my feet out. Yeah, so I sat there for a while. Some guy, like, all these people were passing me saying, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." I sat there,
like, poor guy.
I just walked up, sitting here.
Oh my gosh.
And so some random guy just driving down the road, because we did it in Muncie, Indiana.
And this was in college.
This was in college. Okay. And so
funny.
some random guy like stops, "Hey man, are you okay?" He was not a part of the race. He just, like, his house was down the road, And I was like, "Do you have anything to drink?" And he gives me a half drinking bottle of Gatorade. This is some random dude in Indiana. I don't know. I chugged that thing down. Like, finally my legs get better and go, and
wow.
Yeah, and so it was a fun story. But so I did that, and that was fun. But I was like, wow, I should have trained for it. So I finished the race, but I was stick-legged by the end of the race too. Like, once I got to the half marathon, I think I had like 4 miles left, and I couldn't bend my knees again. So I was like walking, like, I walked the rest of the thing out. But it was fun. So that was fun.
Hilarious.
The reason I tell that story is because the amount of pain, like, I joke about it, but the amount of pain I was in at the end was like really severe. I was like really not feeling well. I was hurting a lot, and just finishing, thinking that I couldn't go anymore, like that, like after the fact, like that became very like rewarding to me, just in other aspects of my life too, realizing that like I can overcome things even when I think I can't. And so that kind of drove me like, like career oriented. Even after that race, it was a changing point for me. I started taking work more seriously, like, decided, hey, I'm going to come back to, because I actually got my degree from Middle Tennessee State University, because my junior year I decided I'm going to come back to MTSU and focus more on my grades and getting like that whole thing just kind of was a pivotal moment for me. And then, Tyler, he ended up like through life, he ended up doing a 50K, and we just kind of fell into this like this endurance type events. A buddy of mine at work, we did the Ragnar races. Have you heard of the Ragnar races? No. They're like it's like a team race from Chattanooga to Nashville, and you start in Chattanooga and you relay race, you run. You run from
that. It takes
it's like 100. It's like 124, and you run. You start like right by downtown Chattanooga, and you finish in downtown Nashville.
That's fucking intense.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
that was intense.
Yeah, it's fun. So
no, girl, I will not be asking you to do that with me. No.
Normally they do it in teams of 12. We did it in a team of 6, which is the ultra version, so because you double the mileage.
Oh my gosh! How many miles is that per person?
Like roughly 30. Okay. I had less because I was like the weaker runner of the group. So I probably had like 24 of that.
So
and I think everybody else had like 30. But
this is like a passion for you. Like this is like built into a passion.
Then it became one. And then when I did the Rim to Rim to Rim, it changed everything, because that was like a crazy experience with like 20 other guys from all around the country who were very interested in the same type endurance space. And so then it just became like, this is kind of a little bit of a lifestyle thing for me.
That's so surreal though. Yeah. The Grand Canyon thing, that was just the views that you have while doing it is crazy.
That's what gets you right there. That's so the thing. Like the road miles are fun, but doing the trail running stuff, going out to just beautiful places and seeing where your feet are going to take you, and just like you're 6 hours in and you're like deep in the like Grand Canyon, or you're out in Colorado somewhere, like it's a really cool experience. So and just the training benefit all year, you kind of have something that you're actively focused on, and that just kind of buttons you up on the outside of everything else.
Yeah.
Does your wife do this with you?
No, she doesn't. Luckily, she's incredibly supportive, because I would not be able to do it without her. Like that's like the big thing is I'm like, hey, like I'm thinking about doing this, and she like my 50-miler I did in Nashville 2 weeks ago. She actually crewed me. So every 5 miles there was a rest stop, and she would show up with her car with nutrition, and I would like hang out with her for like a little bit. Yeah. And then we'd keep running. So it was a really cool moment we got to share together.
Okay, let me share this. I'm going to cut you off just for a second. He and his wife, seriously, you would love them so much. Megan is just the best person ever, and she and Connor have the best relationship. And I think at your brother's wedding, I was just like extremely drunk, and I came up to Connor and I was like, I just love you and Megan so much. Like y'all are so sweet. But just the way they interact with each other, it's just genuine like love and support. Good they're both the ssame way, and I just really love it. Yeah, well, I had to throw that out there.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that. Yeah, me and her, our worlds collided, and then like nothing was ever the same with us.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's the thing too, is like the accountability that she brings and just being able to do it. I mean, you know, because it's not easy being like, you know, like if I'm doing these races, I have to train for them. So we've got a pretty good system of like figuring out to where I'm not, because I'm a huge family man. Like if you ask, I love golfing, but I don't golf on weekends, which all my golf buddies are like, "What do you golf in?" And I'm like, I'll leave work early and golf. Like that's just what I do. It's my standards, what I'm setting, because family is incredibly important. So it's about also like training for these races. How do we do that? And she is great about game planning with me and figuring it out. And so, yeah, I'm very lucky to have her. She's a great support system for me. But yeah, it's fun. I love it. I try to get anybody. I'm like one of those guys like, you want to go run this weekend with me? Like, let's go. Because I want anybody I can to experience it, because it's fun to kind of see what you're capable of, and it does really produce quite a bit of
it's very
benefit.
mental.
Yeah, well, it creates great benefit. It's all mental, really. Yeah. You just have to train to physically show up and do it, but then it's mental. Like once you're there, and the benefit you get like through work and through other things is far beyond what you just do in the race.
We have so much time with yourself when you're running for 6 hours. Mm-hmm. You have so much time to sit there and just think about everything in your life and get to really introspect. And
it's like therapy. I mean, it's like when I go, because I don't listen to music, so when I go out and run, I'm just kind of out there alone.
Oh wow!
I don't know.
And it's just like, and then all those thoughts pop up, that old embarrassing stuff that you didn't really think about or work through. That pops up. You got to work through all of it. If you're going through tough time at work, like anytime that I've got something going on, generally I just like to go out and take a run, and because you just could sit there and
figure it out.
Absolutely work through it. So yes, it's a lot cheaper in therapy.
Yeah, that's true. We talk about that in just working out in general. It's like the way we both start our day, and it's just it clears your mind, lets you kind of get the funk out, and then it's like you get more clarity, and so I get it. But let's like go all the way back around. So like work-life balance, clearly that's our topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
You work your ass off, we can tell, and you're really good at what you do. You've got a family. I don't know if you have a child.
Yeah, two. I've got a 6-year-old, or they're about to be a 7 and a 5-year-old. So
you started your family very young.
Yeah, we did. So yeah, we started extremely young. So I proposed to my wife in June of 2016. I think 2016, and then we were like excited to get our life going. And then in July, the month after we found out we were pregnant. Wow. And we're like, oh man, surprise. So then it was like, well, do we want to like what? And I didn't want to wait for the baby to be born. I don't want to wait for Blakely to be born until I want to be married first. So yeah, we talk about shotgun wedding. We got it done in like 27. We found out like July 3rd or something, and then and then we were married by July 30th. So we did a full on wedding, had all of our friends there, and it was a lot of fun.
A big part.
How old who? Sorry?
How old were y'all?
Oh, I was 22.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had Blakely. Right when we were 22, we had her in 2017 in February, and then I started the pressure washing business with Tyler actually, and we were growing. Like we had a bunch of what we decided to go after was like large property managers and like locking down those contracts and doing that. And so that started working really well. And we were like, hey, we're actually creating something out of this. This could grow. We could try to go for like larger building, like clean, like large windows. Like we were trying to scale it up. And then we got pregnant. And I was like, man, what are we gonna do in the winter months? Like all those things started popping up. So ultimately, decided that I wanted to try to get in this business. And I have a funny story. So my dad, he was kind of like, hey, you're like, I know you want to come to this business, but you're 22. Like, I don't know many people that are going to want to invest their money with you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like generally, like my plan for you was to work somewhere else for 5 years, come in with a little bit more experience. Like at like 27, you come in. And so I was like, well, I really think I could do this. Like I really do. And so he said no. So then I started interviewing for other investment firms and so other wealth management companies. And I got a job actually by UBS in Paducah. And he liked me, and he was going to allow me to go in and get certified. And I was going to work there and then help other advisors around the area with planning. So when I called my dad and told him that, he was like, well, shoot, I guess I need to call up to our home office and see what, So then that kind of leveraged that. And they said, yeah, we're actually hiring young advisors. We need to, because the industry, the average advisor is like 58 right now. Wow. So everyone's getting into their 60s, like the next generation. Like, so now, of course, this is 7 years later, but now like the next generation is everything in our business. Like it's all about getting the next generation of the families that we invest with too. Because you could have the matriarchs or the patriarchs of the family, but then you lose the grandkids who are going to get all the assets. So it's a way to try to keep it, because wealth always disperses the bigger the families get. And so it worked out well. Took a big risk because I didn't I had to go out and get my own assets and do the whole thing. I did cold calling, I door knock businesses, like the whole thing, threw every dart at the wall you could to try to make it happen. And luckily 7 years later, here we are, I'm still in the same business. So luckily it worked out because it did. So
it's definitely a big risk.
That's great. You proved yourself to your dad. You
Yeah,
had to go and that's so cool as being your dad, like to see, okay, somebody else wants my son.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to give him a chance.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like he, we have a great relationship. He just was like, I just don't think it's going to, like, it's the right move for you. Like, he didn't want me to, because the way it works for most brokerage firms, if you're on your own, it's like they give you like a, a year or 2 year salary, and then you better grow and get enough business to replace that salary.
Yeah.
Which in our business, it is incredibly hard to get. You have to get a lot of assets to be able to provide a good income. Sure. So, and generally it takes a year or 2 year relationship to like get a large amount of assets from families. So, or work with families. So it's a very much long-term business. So it was hard to do it. And, but ultimately ended up working out, and now I'm still here, and we're all working together, and my dad's still there as well. So it's worked out really, really well. We're able to provide, next generation planning for our clients. And so it's worked out well, but it's definitely was, we started young. Yeah. We started really, really young.
Admirable though.
That's good though. Yeah. It's okay.
Oh yeah. No, that's part of our story. We love to tell it.
Yeah.
And so that work-life balance. Secret? Yeah. So,
because you obviously haven't figured out more than we do.
No, just no.
You just
running. No. Fell hard. Fell hard, fell rapidly, and fell continuously, and you'll be just fine.
There you go.
Like, seriously,
I love that.
That's what it is. Like, and don't be scared of it. Like, there's so many people that are way too caught up in like what things look like from the outside. Me being a financial advisor, I've got to see an insight to what people's lives financially look like.
Yeah.
And you will be very, very shocked by a lot of things. And it just made me realize, for me, it was a great perspective of learning young that like really things aren't always what they seem. And so all that matters is that you create the right life for you and your family that you want to live. And then all the other judgment on the outside is nothing. I mean, all those bullets that come into your house to just be blasted off, and they explode right on impact because you've built a fortress that doesn't need any outside opinion.
I love it.
So that's kind of what we look at doing. But yeah, it came with a lot of, trying things the right way. Me and my wife are really big on like couples therapy. So we will always do a check-in once a year with someone from our church. We like to go the church route because you don't have to pay for it, which is nice,
Free
so
therapy.
Free
therapy.
Yeah,
gotta love that. Yes, definitely helps.
Well, and like we, it's also like we want biblical counseling too. So like that's a big part of who we are, and is our faith in Jesus. So like we're not, not that we're not going to go to a random therapist, but we want to be biblically based as well. So that's why we go there. But the perk is also that I'm always cost conscious. So I'm always like, but so a little plug there. If like you're like, if you and your wife need therapy, or you and your husband need therapy, go to your church. Someone's like really good and already been through what you're going through. So, but yeah, so we do that actively. We also have a special needs daughter, so that was like a big thing that kind of got thrown in the loop with us as well. My daughter Blakely has got Rett syndrome, which is it's actually a very rare genetic disorder. Less than 1,000. It's primarily in females, so less than 1,000 females. It's extremely rare in males, like almost non-existent. But less than 1,000 females a year get diagnosed with this genetic disease. And at first we thought she had autism, and ended up finding out that it shows up a lot like autism, but unless you do like very deep genetic testing, you can't figure it out. And the genetic testing world is just coming to this the research. I mean, it's just expanded crazily. So now they can start to diagnose these children better and give them the right kind of benefits. But yeah. So for her, it's, she's nonverbal, she can walk, but can't really feed herself, can't bathe herself, can't clothe herself, things of that nature. So we're doing a lot of that for her. So that also was a perspective that we got that was a little bit different, is that we had to also do life differently than others too.
Yeah.
We got forced into a different perspective of things. Some things we couldn't go to, some things we could. So we just kind of learned early on that we don't have to worry about the Joneses because we're way different than the Joneses, And so because of that, we had to craft like, who are the Sheas?
Yeah.
And once we built that fortress, it just stuck, and it just didn't really matter because it is different. Now, would I have had that same perspective without Blakely? I don't know. I don't think we would have. I think we would have been caught up in like trying to say, oh, they moved over there. That looks looks like a nice neighborhood. Let's stretch ourselves and go over there too, or whatever that looks like. So
it's very different.
Yeah. So then work-life balance literally became like the number one priority for us, because I have to leave work sometimes to go take Blakely to therapy. And we started therapy at a very, very young age. So, figuring out like what that looks like. Having coworkers be like, hey, you should be working more. And it's like, yeah, well, you don't also have, especially a child I have, like I might work differently than you if the outcome's the same, and you can't tell me different. And so, and that has always been I'm also very much like, someone tells me no, I'm going to be like, well, watch this. So naturally I want to like push that. My wife's the same way too. We take constructive criticism well, but if you tell us something's impossible, we want to go prove it.
Absolutely. So I love that.
That's who we both are. So like I said, it happened naturally, and work-life balance became our number one thing. And it's rooted in our faith in Jesus too. Like everything flows from there, and that's what we focused on. Like if we can have a great relationship with Jesus, I'm going to be a better husband, a better father. If I can be physically and mentally healthy, I'm going to be a better friend and a better advisor. And it's like work's like almost the last bucket that I fill. Yeah. As long as if all the other, it's almost like I kind of look at it as like a bunch of buckets, small, and then they get big, and work's that big one that everyone's kind of a daunting one. But all the small buckets, starting with my relationship with Jesus, all the way to my wife, my kids, my family, my mental health, physical activity, if all those buckets are overflowing, work is just exploding with water. Yeah. And I'm growing really, really well. And I found that to be true.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love the metaphors.
So when you goal plan, when you goal plan next year, don't put putting up there like, what do you want to do? I want to sell 100 homes next year. That's not the first thing on your list.
Yeah.
Right? You kind of back it off.
It kind of is, but
well,
maybe it's not anymore. It is the first one. If you go look at our vision board, it definitely is that.
Well, I wouldn't, and it is for everybody. I mean, that's how I started. I would like do my game. I did this in I think it was right before COVID, 2019. I listed out my top priorities, and they were literally inverse of each other. It was like, what do I want to do in my business? How many assets do I want to gather? Like, what do I want to do? And then like there was no like how can me and Megan grow closer this year? Like there was none of that.
Date night or
none of that. It was not on there. And then so I was like, I'm flipping the script. Yeah. And we're going straight off the bat. How can I get closer to Jesus? How can I get closer to my wife? How can I be a better father to my kids? Like, okay, physically, what do I want to look like? Do I want to get my diet in line? Like, how can I be a better brother? Yeah. Or a friend maker or whatever. So, and then work was like, I want to get, this many assets under management this year. And operating from that priority, it made the last thing so easy.
That's incredible.
It just came naturally. Like I didn't have to actually, because what I would do is I'd make that last piece of work was so important. All the other stuff was such a stressful situation in my life. Yeah.
Well, because we focused.
My wife wasn't happy. I constantly was like hanging out with friends, and like it just was this whole thing where I physically didn't feel like I was in that great of shape. So I didn't feel very good. I mean, all those things were stress points in my life, and then I was trying to operate from that level of stress and anxiety into, let me be your financial advisor, I'm the best one for you, and it just never came across that way.
For sure. Yeah.
And
it
then
takes a certain level of maturity to realize that too.
Yeah, but it really changed everything for me. So that's how I tell people, like, just operate with who you are, how you want to be, focus on your personal stuff first, and then all your business stuff is it's gonna come so easily.
That's so
true. I mean, and of course it's hard. I mean, we all get it. We all have our own issues in our industries. But
okay, so next year I'm focusing on myself, not work. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, seriously.
Are you sure?
Kara first, you second.
Kara at the top of my list.
No, I'm just kidding.
Make Kara happy. No, I'm just kidding. But
that's great advice, and I think that totally comes all around to well-being. Needs to be healthy in order for you to be the best you can be in your business. Absolutely. So we do believe that. I mean, maybe not in the right order there, but we do believe that.
Well, it's funny. It's like work-life balance. Like, how could we restructure that?
Work balance.
Or not that. What if it's just life?
It's just life.
Right? So, like, and that's kind of ultimately what it came down to. Is like, it's not a work-life balance. Like, this is my life. This is what I have to do day in, day out. Yeah. So, like, let's do that to the best of our ability.
I love that.
And I got to figure out what order that looks like to be the best. Because it's different for all of us.
Yeah, it is.
We all different situations, different beliefs, different hobbies, all those things. So you got to categorize them, but I'd encourage you to put work last.
Okay. Well, we're going to clip that because the work should be last, but a lot of people don't think of it that way. Thank you so much.
Great.
Yeah, no,
I've learned so much.
I really enjoyed it.
Well, it's fun to learn different perspectives. Everybody's got,
absolutely.
That's the whole goal of this podcast is we do learn so much from each other, and it's amazing. And even just like your behavioral stuff, I thought was really intriguing and exciting. So I'm sure our fans and guests and everybody that watches us,
our fans.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm sure
you do have fans now. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exciting.
That's funny. But anyways, we do appreciate you for coming in.
Yeah,
like, share, subscribe,
all the good things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.